Well, there is no such thing as a free lunch, but don't try telling that to the Occupy crowd. Hi, everyone. Glad to have you. I'm Neil Cavuto. And Fox on top of the occupiers this past week going over the top, even as the president is going out this weekend and continuing his push for more student loan subsidies. Maybe that's why a lot of these occupiers are going off the rails with what they want from the rest of us.
What economic system would you rather have in place instead of capitalism?
I'd have to say anarcho-communism, where you get free food, where you get free medical services, and that's provided by the community.
I think my daughter went out with that dude. Anyway, my goodness. Here is the problem. All of that free stuff.
That's my son.
Actually, all of that stuff is costing us a lot of stuff. And guess who pays for it? The Ben Stein, Charles Payne, David McDowell, along with Adam Lashinsky and Charlie Gasparino.
He has no relation to me, that dude. Is that a guy or girl?
Yeah.
Charles, what do you think of that?
Hey, listen, you mentioned President Obama. You remember when he won the nomination and he gave that big speech in Chicago in the park, and he actually said you have your credit card bills are maxed out and that's not your fault. That was the beginning of what this whole thing is all about. He's gone to college students. He's telling college students, listen, these educations that you're getting that we should talk about being priceless, worth so much and an investment, you shouldn't have to pay for it. You shouldn't have to pay for anything. This kid is just taking his cue from the White House. And guess what? Ultimately, I think they do believe corporate America will pay for it. The top 1% will pay for it. And we'll all live happily ever after.
Take it.
Free food, free health care is called staying at home and living with your parents, the same people who spoiled you so rotten that you think you deserve something for free. But you know what? This starts with older generations, because you look at our entitlements, and this is really, this gentleman feels entitled to free things.
Whoa.
We have, wait a minute. We have Social Security and Medicare that can't get fixed because people are not willing to give up a benefit that they're not actually paying for.
I just channeled the older folks when you said that. They will tell you, listen, I put money into Medicare. I put money into Social Security.
They're going to get more money out of it.
These kids are coming out of high school saying somebody owes me something.
My point is that you have people who are beginning to take more money out of Medicare than they have ever put in. And future generations are going to do the same thing. And it's not fixable because people are not willing to give up something.
You know, it's funny. You know, usually journalists are criticized for taking the most absurd, bizarre example and making that stand for the norm. Like I was ready to accuse you of, Neil, but the most absurd, bizarre example is the norm.
That kid was one of the better.
That's what I'm going to say. That is the norm.
Coherent.
That is the norm when you deal with Occupy Wall Street. And I've been down there. I've interviewed him both incognito and with my Fox News business.
What do you mean incognito? They thought you were one of them when you
Yeah, I was dressed. Yeah, I didn't shower.
Did you have a wig on, Charlie? I want a picture of that.
I didn't shower for a week. You know, the whole thing.
I've seen Charlie unshowered and sweaty, and let's call it incognito.
But you know, the bigger point is this: is that, you know, one of the reasons why President Obama is in trouble with independents, when you look at polling, is that he does support just about exactly the plank, if you can call it a plank, of the Occupy Wall Street movement, the massive subsidies. It is, Adam. You talk to any independent, really, independents are not saying he's moving too far to the left. That's nonsense. Are you really saying?
No, but you're changing this. You're changing the subject completely.
I mean, Occupy Wall Street. Adam, what do you make of that? That's a spurious.
Well, I think that the president is not advocating free food, and he is not advocating free health care. As a matter of fact, that's been one of the interesting policy.
Are you talking about Bush or Clinton or Obama?
Yeah, very funny. I'm talking about the president of the United States, the man who Charles likes to refer to as they, you know, and the people in his party as they. So I'm referring to him as the president because we only have one.
Listen, when I criticize him, I call him the president. What are you talking about?
But, you know, Ben Stein, the movement itself is what's raising questions this week, because it seemed like everyone was bitching about something. Everyone's mad about everything. I can understand, you know, displaced, misplaced anger, but I don't think these guys know what's going on. Frankly, I just don't. I think it's understandable to be angry if you don't, you know, feel like you're getting your fair share, however you want to call it. But then to say that you expect everything else to be free or coming to you as if there's no cost to that, and that's why this young man was not really that much of an exception to that crowd. That was a view widely echoed. That's what worries me.
A nation which once conquered the world now relies on bread and circuses That's what a very famous commentator said about the Roman Empire in its declining days. And that's America now. We just have a very large block of the electorate who don't want to do any work, who expect everything to be given to them. And Mr. Obama caters to that block. I suspect that block is very largely college students who have the incredible idea that a very, very valuable investment in them should be given to them for free by people who drive taxis and work on factory lines. That's just a nutty idea, and I hope and pray the president is not listening to them.
Look,
Adam?
But Ben, I hold your intellect in high regard, and I think that you're making an intellectually dishonest argument right now, because we are attempting in this conversation to equate the Occupy movement with the president's policies.
Adam, he's come out and explicitly. Wait a second, Adam. He's come out and explicitly endorsed them, hasn't he? He said very good things about. Yes, he has. He said he understands what they're coming from.
To express sympathy with people is not
by the way,
to endorse.
Adam, these folks are demanding a free lunch, right? They're not only that, they're violent, right? And he has not come out against them.
But they are not the American people. They are not even the American left. They're not even the American Democratic Party.
We're talking about Obama's
they are some young people
them.
protesting.
Well, Charles Payne, I guess I want to ask you this. I did not mean to drag the president into this, although I'm happy to if you want to. But I will say this. I will say this. Does it set up a worrisome standard for you that, for example, in the Rolling Stone interview with the president, the question that Dan Wenner asked of the president was, what has the occupiers taught you, or what have you learned from them? No reference to the Tea Party or what and how they might have changed the system working within the system. Now, I'm not saying you have to like the Tea Party, or for that matter, you have to hate the occupiers. But if you're going to compare movements, I think the one that's gotten the better bang for the results buck has been the Tea Partiers, and they are nowhere held in any regard by the mainstream media.
Absolutely.
Well, they're held in contempt by a lot of the mainstream media. But listen, the president birthed the Occupy movement, and I disagree 1,000% with what Adam's saying. This is the president's agenda, and why it's scary is not because this is a bunch of college students, because on Sunday, France gave capitalism a 3 or 4 year chance. They're going to revert back to socialism. An entire people can fall into this trap. Now, if you look at the statistics for France, how they've fallen off with respect to global GDP growth, unemployment above 7% for 30 years, all of that stuff, they're okay. They're embracing that. We're embracing the same sort of mediocrity in this country, and we're becoming a welfare state.
I think that it's dangerous, though, to look at the Occupy movement and these young people who feel like they're entitled to something and think that it's just an isolated group of young people. I think as a country, over decades, literally, we have become of the mindset, I am more and more entitled to help from the government. And American people get help in ways that you don't think. How about cheap mortgage rates? Because the government controls the entire mortgage market, and people don't look at it. If they're getting a benefit, they don't see it as an entitlement.
But by the way,
and that becomes very dangerous.
By the way, this comes from the top, and it's bipartisan. The welfare state did not shrink under George W. Bush. It did. I don't know if it shrank under Ronald Reagan. I mean, we've been on drive. You know,
it did shrink.
It did shrink, but
Charles is saying under this president,
right? And did it shrink under Clinton? We don't know because the economy grew. But my point is this: when you have the guy at the top being asked that question, what have you learned from the Occupy Wall Street movement, and the guy at the top takes that question serious, you got a big problem.